Thor, shh, shh, shh. He can't hear me. Of Pocketful of Poseys. Today's project is the next in my So Out of My Comfort Zone series. It is my natural form bodice. I'm very excited to share it with you. I used a truly Victorian pattern and I will link that down below. So without further ado, let's get into it. Here we go. I began with cutting out and sewing a mock-up. I used some leftover seashell cotton from my April Fool's fabric dress. Okay, here's the bodice mock-up. Now, I just made it with all of the seam allowances and everything. The 1/2 inch seam allowance from the instructions. I just cut out the largest size. I wanted to check the fit. I checked it on Freya, and I need more room in the stomach. I think the chest is okay. I can make the darts smaller, which I think is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make the darts smaller. I think the bust actually is almost perfect. I've got about 1 inch overlap at the top here. However, I will need more to sew the lining in and all of that kind of stuff. I think the back is actually good. The back, of course, that's usually the case because I'm bigger in the front than I am in the back. So, gonna make the dart smaller. I don't think slash and spread would work on this because of the darts. So I just think making the darts smaller will be the way to go. So I'll do the dart smaller, and then I'll do 1/4 inch seam allowance, and that should work. All right, off we go. So I adjusted the darts, and just with adjusting the darts, I am able to get the middle to come together, but I think I am still going to do a 1/4 inch seam allowance at least on this seam right here, on the side seam. Actually, scratch that last because I realized I had only redone one side of darts. Yeah, so making the second side dart smaller will give me the room that I need. So there you go. Okay, so just adjusting the darts is going to work. Excellent. I am continuing on with my bodice. I've cut out the lining, and I am about to cut out the fabric with Hercules' help. This pale kind of ice blue silk taffeta. Now, part of the reason I made the underskirt pink is that I bought this fabric years ago on a massive sale from, I think, Fabric Mart Fabrics, and I was not able to buy enough to make the underskirt, bodice, and overskirt out of this kind of hard to see in this light the exact color because it's, does that help? No. It's kind of hard to see. It just kind of looks, maybe if I back it up a little. So yes, I don't have enough to do all 3 pieces out of the silk taffeta. So that's why I did the underskirt in the pink tissue taffeta. So the bodice and the overskirt are going to be in this ice blue silk taffeta. So I'm really excited to get started on that. My other plan is to use some of my leftover tissue taffeta, and I'm thinking on the front bodice doing like a contrasting panel down the center, down the center bodice of the pink to help tie it together. And I was considering some other options as well, but that's all in my mind right now. So gotta get cutting. I flatlined the silk with cotton broadcloth. Hercules was very supportive. Next, I ironed my bodice pieces. So I tried a little experiment with flatlining. I did one on the machine with a basting stitch, and I did one by hand. These are both the back panels. I did one by hand with, you know, a even bigger basting stitch. And so they both were fine. They're both fine. So I think in terms of being quick, I'm going to use the machine for the rest. So I did feel that when I was basting by hand to do the flat lining, I you know, definitely felt like I had more control over the fabric and everything. And because I always find with flat lining, you know, you want to make sure everything is just lined up perfectly so that you don't get bunches, which can happen more with the machine. You know, if it's not quite, like right here, it's not quite lined up, so it feels like this wants to bunch a little bit, but I think that's not going to be that big of a deal. So yeah, 2 down. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more to go. Okay, I'm almost done flatlining. I only have the front pieces left to do to flatline, but I have to get ready for work now and go to work and do real things. Not that sewing isn't real, but you know. But before, can I just say how much I love silk taffeta? The rustle is so beautiful. It's like music. Okay, all of my bodice pieces are flatlined now, so let's start putting this together. I basted along my dart lines with Dames a la mode for company. Doing this keeps the layers together at the darts so they stay smooth while sewing. I used my quilting clips instead of pins for the darts. That way I don't accidentally make pin marks in the silk. I took the bodice to the machine to sew the darts. I sew off the edge at the dart points and tie rather than backstitch. Hercules and I cut out pink silk for contrasting trim. I took some time to decide on trim placement. I wanted to use pinks and blues and had this dusty pink and baby blue flat lace. I enjoyed watching the closet historian make a ball gown bodice while I worked. I have pinned this lace onto this little pink panel, and I have pinned that to the front of the bodice. And I think it's gonna look really nice. I got started pinning my bodice pieces together while watching Nicole Rudolph's Maleficent costume video. This bodice has 2 back, 2 side, 2 and 2 front pieces. Lucia supervised while I sewed the bodice together. Just realized my shirt is on inside out. Huh. Now, I sewed this with exactly the same way as I sewed the lining, but I have more room in the lining than I do this. Now, I can only assume that is due to the weave of the fabric. This is cotton, this is silk, this has a more dense weave. So this might actually have a little bit of stretch in it, just, you know. So I don't have much overlap here in the front. I mean, I think the fit is very nice. I mean, except for it doesn't have quite enough, as I poke myself with pins. Doesn't have quite enough overlap in the front. Now I'm going to do hooks and eyes, not buttons, so I do not need quite as much overlap. So I might be able to get away with it of only doing a 1/4 inch on one side and an 1/8 on the other, so that it will line up in the center. I have to think about that. Definitely. My brain math may not be correct. I'm going to add a decorative element. I'm going to add a decorative element on the center fronts. So I could theoretically, if I did this piece just a little bit wider and lined it so it had more structure. I mean, basically I could just add an extra 1/2 inch with this, and it would not be super noticeable. Maybe that's the way to go. As I contemplated the center front, I cut out my sleeves. I then attached the lace to the silk decorative strip with the ever-present Hercules. I pinned and sewed the trim to the bodice. And then sewed an additional panel to provide more room at center left front. I next added a panel to the right center front. They will be turned under and have about a 5/8 of an inch overlap. I checked to make sure the center fronts would line up and look nice. My next step was sewing the collar to the collar lining and turning it right side out. I used the pink silk for the collar lining. I then pinned and sewed it to the bodice neckline. I used the small half collar option. Going back to the sleeves, I pinned and sewed the sleeve pieces together. Have you spotted my mistake? Just realized a mistake. I forgot to flatline the sleeves. I just sewed them together, and then I was like, wait a second. Yeah. So I'm thinking I'm not gonna flatline the sleeves. I mean, I don't think it's that big of a deal. So I mean, I guess flatlining would protect them a bit from like sweat and stuff, but I don't have enough of the blue broadcloth that I used to flatline the bodice for sleeves, because it was just a scrap that I had left. So I'm just gonna not. I think it's fine. I think in my 18th century my 18th century dress, my robe à l'anglaise, I also forgot to line the sleeves. So this is just par for the course, and that's silk too, and nothing has happened to them. So yeah, I think I'm just not gonna line the sleeves. I'm gonna have pinked edges on the inside and that will be that. I ran gathering stitches on both sleeve heads. I trimmed my seam allowances and ironed, and that's my elbow. Time to pin and sew the sleeves into the arm size. Then I pinned the lining to the bodice right sides together along the bottom edge and neckline. I left the center fronts free, and you'll see why in a bit. After sewing, I pulled the bodice right side out. Since I didn't line the sleeves, I folded a narrow hem at the bottom of the sleeves. Hercules may not approve. I then pinned the lining at the arm size. Back to the trim. I added lace around the neckline. I want this gown to be frothy and springtimey. Next, I turned the center front extensions over to cover the raw edges of the lining. I used a whip stitch to sew them down. I then sewed the lace on the neckline using a long running back stitch, I guess, if that's what you want to call it. Okay, we are in the home stretch. I have attached the trim. I will probably attach more trim to this once I have the overskirt finished and decide how I want to trim that. And then I might add some trim, maybe some bows or something to the back of the bodice on the tail. But that is that. All I have left to do now is to attach the lining around the arm side on the inside, attach the lining to the main fabric, and I'm just going to probably just pink those edges after I get the lining sewn in. I might do a zigzag on those just to give it some extra security, and then ironing some more. It seems like that's all I have been doing is ironing, and then attaching the oh yeah, I have to hem the sleeves, and I'm contemplating adding trim on those as well, and then attach the hooks and bars for the front closure. So say we're in the home stretch, that still seems like a lot, but here we go. I sewed the lining to the arm size by hand with a running stitch. Then I sewed the sleeve hems and pinned and sewed trim to them as well. Lastly, hooks and bars, and it was finished. This bodice took longer than I thought it would to complete, but I'm very happy I took my time and didn't rush trying to finish it. I think it is lovely, and it is what I envisioned. So as you can see, there still are some fit issues. When I added the extra width to the center fronts that made the bust a little too big. I might just use some padding rather than change the whole thing. I can't wait to see it with the entire ensemble completed. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you spending your time with me. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, subscribe if you haven't, and if you'd like to be notified whenever I upload, you can hit that little bell icon. If you'd like to support the channel further, I have a Ko-fi account, and that is linked down below. Stay tuned for the next project in my Sew Out of My Comfort Zone series, and it will be the overskirt for my natural form gown. I'm really excited about it. Thanks again, and I will see you on our next sewing adventure. Bye!